Hello everyone. This story is about, what if Naruto was adopted by Guy and fell for Kurenai? Please like, share and subscribe. Now let's start. Naruto sat straight up the moment he awoke. At first, he was confused about what had happened and how he had got into a bed, but then he remembered the rage he had felt as he drifted in between being conscious and unconscious. He remembered Gato shouting about letting the girls live, but taking Kurenai to be his personal toy. He remembered the feeling of Zabuza's power as the juggernaut of a man had launched himself at Gato and killed him. Naruto remembered how he had drawn the Kyuubi's power to keep himself conscious, but the power boost had been enough to use the Suiton, Suiryu no Mugen no Mai, Dance of the Infinite Water Dragon. That brought to mind how he had killed every last one of the thugs still standing, crushing and drowning the hundreds of bandit mercenaries that Gato had brought. He shivered. He knew that as a shinobi he would have to kill at one point, but he hadn't expected his first time killing to be a massacre. Thankfully, the mix of the Kyuubi's volatile chakra, which numbed all emotions but rage, and the advice his father had given him and Lee about killing and how a person was only bad or evil if they enjoyed it, had kept him from freezing up during the combat. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted as a soft voice called to him from the doorway. "Naruto, I'm glad to see you're awake. Are you alright?" Naruto looked at his sensei and smiled. Kurenai's regularly immaculate appearance was frizzled, her hair not exactly where she liked it and bags under her eyes. The effect was humanizing in a way. His sensei had somehow kept up her looks even during battle, but the genuine concern in her tone kept Naruto from musing for too long. "I'm alright, Kurenai-sensei. How about you? I've never seen you so disheveled before." Kurenai let out a light sigh as her worries about her closest student were put to rest. She loved Hinata like a little sister, but Naruto was who she spent the most time, and he had grown very close to her during their one-on-one training he requested every day they met. "A lot better now that you're awake. I've been watching you the vast majority of the time, trying to keep you comfortable. I only left to grab some food a minute ago. Of course, you would choose to wake up when I'm not in the room." Naruto felt his cheeks lightly flush at the idea that Kurenai had stayed up so long to make sure he was alright while he was unconscious. But thankfully, the lights were off in the room and she didn't see. "Thanks, sensei. How long was I out?" Kurenai looked almost disappointed that he didn't respond to her remark at the end, but answered him anyway. "You've been out for 2 days, you were already exhausted and injured before the Kyuubi manifested, and that seemed to weaken you further the moment it shut off." Naruto winced, remembering the Kyuubi cloak he had accessed on the bridge. He hadn't told his teammates he could activate that power thanks to earning some small measure of respect from the beast through his intense training. Yeah. I was gonna tell you I could do that, but we didn't really have any time alone before the fight, and I hadn't been planning on using it. I guess I'll have to tell everyone about it now though." Kurenai was upset that he hadn't trusted his teammates enough to tell them without them seeing. But she knew how the villagers had mistreated him before Guy had adopted him, and how they ignored him completely afterward. She even knew that he had to use a hench to shop, because the people that ran the store would ignore him and ask for the next in line while he was standing waiting to pay. "Yes, Naruto, you are going to tell them. You should have already told them, they are your teammates and friends, they have a right to know." Naruto looked away while his sensei scolded him, too ashamed to meet her gaze. He knew he should have told them, after all he had told Shikamaru, but he was afraid that they would no longer accept him if they knew. "I'm not angry, Naruto. I just want you to trust them as much as you trust me. It's important to trust your comrades. I know you work well together, but lingering doubts can affect your teamwork, and I don't want you to get hurt." "What? She means all of us, right?" Naruto's blush was now bright enough to be seen, and Kurenai had moved closer to him rather than keep speaking by the doorway. She had apparently not noticed her little slip of the tongue, but became worried when she saw him flush. "Is he doing that because of me?" "No, he can't be. Must just feel feverish or too warm from all the blankets. I'm his sensei and almost a decade older than him, he can't like me." Kurenai had taken to usually calling him Naruto-kun, but on missions she was all business from the second they met their contact. She knew they were a little closer than average for a Jounin sensei and genin, but she saw how Guy's relationship as a father figure for Lee had helped the academy dead last grow. She didn't think there was anything wrong or untoward for the way she felt about the genin. Sure, he looked really cute to her sometimes, but she thought it was like he was a puppy, not weird at all. Kurenai's best friend Enko teased her about it all the time though, at least since she had drank a little and told her. Her crazy friend had done just as expected, and accused her of being a cradle robber. Anko had even come up with the theory that the real reason Kurenai had never gone on a date was that everyone that asked had been too old for her. And that she decided to be a genin sensei as something like a dating service. Kurenai stayed calm and denied these obviously false allegations, even if they had been incredibly embarrassing. Sensei? Kurenai looked back at Naruto, realizing she had spaced out while remembering Anko's crazy insinuations about just what she taught Naruto when they practiced genjutsu alone in her house. Yes, Naruto? Naruto looked around the room, before continuing. I was wondering what happened to the new Abari. I wanted to keep it and learn to use it to balance out my combat and not be disadvantaged by longer-reaching opponents or swordsmen. Kurenai smiled, glad she remembered correctly about Naruto saying he wanted a sword, but thought to tease him a little before giving it to him. Their mission was more or less complete, after all, and it had been too long since they had spoken about anything normal. Oh? Are you sure you wouldn't rather have the Kubikuribocho? It is way bigger and more easily recognized. Her banter left Naruto frowning, however. He had killed Kushimaru, and if he wanted his sword, he deserved it. That was how that psycho had gained it in the first place. Kubikuribocho belongs to whoever killed Zabuza, which I'm going to say is a mixture of Kakashi-sensei and Zabuza overstraining his own body. Besides, Zabuza earned my respect when he charged Gato and rampaged through his thugs. Kushimaru was nothing but a sadist that was too faded from his prime and too proud to quit. Kurenai saw that her banter attempt failed a second time. Naruto not being recovered enough to respond wittily. Well, I did recover Nuabari from the battlefield for you, but did you have any plans to learn to use it? Naruto nodded his head. He had several ideas, but none of them were likely. I was going to ask Kakashi-sensei if he could give me some tips or scrolls on sword combat, then attempt to mix his insight and my memories to replicate Kushimaru's sword style. Kurenai frowned. She knew it would take personal instruction to really become any good with a sword, and she had a better idea of who to ask. You know, I have a friend in ANBU that specializes in kenjutsu. I bet I could get you a few lessons with her. If you'd like me to, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled as the friendly honorific resurfaced and nodded excitedly. He would never pass up training from an ANBU operative if they were willing. It would take time out from the rest of his training, but he could still just make clones for most of it. He could even send a clone to continue his genjutsu training with Kurenai, if she didn't take offense to not training him in person. Their conversation was broken by Kakashi turning on the light in the room they were in, his visible eye closed in what might be his largest eye smile ever. Naruto found the act rather disturbing, however, as he didn't understand how a person could bend their eyelids into a U shape. Maybe Kakashi had to train his eye muscles to do that, or it was some kind of genetic mutation. The laid-back voice that came from behind the mask brought Naruto from his musings, for now. Good to see such a close relationship between sensei and student. Also, welcome back to the land of the living, Naruto. Naruto managed a short nod, despite his blush and the unnerved feeling he got watching Kakashi smile. Kurenai didn't blush at all and assumed Kakashi was praising her teaching rather than accusing her of pedophilia. Although she found it odd he referred to it as seeing, despite his eyes currently being closed. Everyone is having dinner right now, I'm sure they would love it if you came down and told them exactly what happened. Kakashi's smile had left him. His eye now open and peering at Naruto suspiciously. He knew his sensei was extremely skilled, and that this was his son, but he was worried the Kyuubi had tried to escape the other day and that Naruto might be suffering from a weakened seal. Naruto scratched the back of his head nervously, before he nodded and agreed to come downstairs. Of course, he had just woke up after 2 days of rest and a heavy injury, so Kurenai insisted that she help him with the stairs, even as Naruto protested that he was fine. When they reached the dining room, the rest of the group turned and saw Naruto. Hinata and Shino had relieved looks, while Kiba, Sasuke, and Sakura looked as though they were trying to figure him out. Naruto sat down in one of the chairs, with Kurenai's assistance, before once more scratching his head nervously. So, I guess you guys want to know what happened at the bridge? Team 7 collectively nodded, while his own team just looked at him in anticipation. Alright, what do you guys know about the Kyuubi attack? Sakura answered instantly, she had tried to memorize every important historical event in Leaf history. Though there were some that were no longer taught. On October 10th, nearly 13 years ago, the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked our village. It dealt major damage, before the Yondaime killed it, sacrificing himself in the process. Naruto nodded, and proceeded to take a few calming breaths. That is what the books say, and it is mostly correct, with one exception. The group leaned forward, wanting to know what this had to do with Naruto. Killing a bijou only disperses it for a short time, a few years at most. In order to truly save the village, the yondaime sealed the kyubi away into a newborn baby. The only way the container's chakra coils could handle the massive expansion brought by becoming a Jinchuriki. Sasuke's eyes widened, realizing where this was going and envying Naruto for his gift. The baby used was born that day, namely, I was born approximately 5 minutes before the kyubi's rampage began. Sakura took on a panicked expression, remembering how her parents warned her to stay away from Naruto. You're the kyubi. Sakura's shriek was met with a frustrated sigh by both Jounin and all the other genin. No, Sakura. I am not the kyubi, it was sealed inside me, like rations into a scroll or anything else that is sealed. Sakura's breath calmed as she got over the shock and looked at the situation logically. The yondaime was famous for being the greatest sealmaster alive at the time, and he had performed the sealing at cost of his life. Naruto had never displayed destructive or aggressive tendencies, besides at the bridge, which was a combat situation. Neither of her parents were skilled with seals, her mother a civilian and her father a retired chunin. The odd cloak of red energy he had used was shaped like a fox, but it seemed to flow from his core. Her usually intelligent brain figured that Naruto was being honest, he was not the kyubi. As she calmed down, the others thought about what they had just learned. Shino had expected that for some time, though he only had situational evidence. Hinata just felt her admiration for Naruto increase. Sasuke felt that the kyubi was the only reason Naruto was so strong, and that Sasuke would be stronger if he had its power. Kiba didn't really have an opinion. Naruto was Naruto, and this didn't really change anything about him. The two Jounin had already known, and thus had already formed opinions about our young hero. Hinata was the first to speak, easily the more talkative of Naruto's teammates. Is that why the villagers treat you like they do? They jumped to the conclusion that you are the kyubi like Sakura-san just did? Sakura looked down in shame at having voiced that thought before considering all of the facts. Determined not to be so judgmental from now on. Yeah, of course, I don't blame them too much. They lost their families and livelihoods, a lot of them. They don't bother to think that I lost my parents too. I'd probably have been a complete moron if Guy hadn't adopted me. Sasuke's envy dissipated as he heard that Naruto was mistreated because of his power. He wanted to kill Itachi, but there was no point if he was hated for the rest of his life afterwards. Gaining power was important, but Sasuke believed it important to be recognized. He did care for his teammates, even if he didn't show it. Kiba had essentially become his best friend, which was important even if he was his only real friend. Kakashi gave another of his physically improbable smiles, and looked at his students, proud that they had realized the truth. He wasn't going to tell Naruto that his birth father was his sensei, but he still felt a connection to him. He had no idea that Naruto already knew, or he would have offered him a lot more than just the few scrolls he had given him. Naruto, however, already knew that Kakashi was his biological father's student, and planned to discuss it in private when he asked about using his sword. Tazuna and his family had been silent for the story, and none of them felt any animosity for the hero of their country. They hadn't lost anything in the Kyubi attack, and Naruto had saved them from being overwhelmed by Gado's thugs. They didn't really understand too much about what he was talking about, but it seemed that he was the same as before and he didn't look like a fox, so he wasn't one. Naruto was glad that as soon as Sakura's misunderstanding had cleared, everyone accepted him. Oh, Kakashi-sensei, I want to ask you about something. Kakashi looked at Naruto as the conversation veered to easier subjects, his lazy gaze hiding his impressive mind. I'm going to keep the new Ibari. And I was hoping you could help me a little with some advice or something so I can get started training with it. Kakashi was thrilled to have another opportunity to help his sensei's son, and agreed to meet Naruto outside in an hour. Kurenai objected, saying that Naruto should rest more, but Naruto stated that he was fine and 2 days was more than enough sleep. When the two of them got outside, Naruto brought up something that he felt Kakashi should know. Kakashi-sensei, I know who my biological parents are, and I know my dad was your sensei. Kakashi was shocked. When had Naruto found out? If the Hokage knew, why didn't he tell him? These questions burned through his mind before coming up with his own answer. The physical resemblance to the yondaime would become more prominent if Naruto was seen around known acquaintances of him. That included both Kakashi and Jiraiya. If Kakashi's guess was right, Naruto's knowledge was kept from them for the same reason he hadn't been able to help Naruto in the open by adopting him. How did you find out, Naruto? It was supposed to be an S-rank secret. Naruto grinned and gave a nice guy pose, bringing a subconscious twitch from Kakashi. One of my classmates told me I looked a lot like him, and I bothered Gigi until he told me when I asked for a paternity test. I could swear he was glaring at Dad though when I said paternity. Kakashi's sweat dropped. He knew that Naruto would never have learned what that word meant without either engaging in the activity to cause it or Guy telling him. It was probably a good thing that Guy had though, now Naruto had some of his mother's things at least. He would have to make Chunin to gain his father's, but Naruto would most likely do that on his first try. Well, Naruto, if you already know, then I guess I can tell you about him while I show you the basics. 3 hours later, a winded Naruto and Kakashi came back to the house. Naruto's stamina wasn't completely recovered yet, and Kakashi had neglected his training since leaving ANBU enough that he was tired as well. His injuries and fatigue from the bridge played a large part in his exhaustion though. Naruto was smiling brightly though, glad to have learned a little about his first father. To Naruto's surprise, an extra person was in the dining room from when he had left. The kunoichi that had helped Zabuza was being convinced by Hinata that she should join them and come to Konoha. Wild promises about her being treated practically like she was royalty for having a Kekkai Genkai and about the world's most delicious cinnamon buns being used as evidence. Hinata even promised that she could still be a kunoichi if she wanted and that she would be her bestest friend if she agreed to come. Haku eventually relented, more interested in Hinata's promise to help her think for herself and be her friend than the cinnamon buns. Naruto briefly wondered why, until the rest of the team gave him Haku's backstory that Hinata had apparently pulled from the quiet girl while he was out. She had come from Kiri, where Kekkai Genkai were purged as being evil, and had been taken in by Zabuza because he gave her a purpose. Her father had killed her mother, then attempted the same on her. Ice spears rose from the ground and saved her, but she had lost her will to live. Naruto promised he would ask the Hokage to take her in himself, as he had a special relationship with the man. Both Hinata and Haku had thanked him for his support, Haku overwhelmed by the kindness these people that she had fought against showed her. Naruto shrugged off their thanks and returned to bed, too tired from straining his recovery to stay up the rest of the night with his fellow genin. Kurenai had already gone to bed, no longer keeping herself awake with worry and not having to watch over Naruto now that he was awake. A smile was on Naruto's face when he fell asleep, one destined to be wiped off as his dreams were the only place those he had killed were still alive. A week later, both Team 7 and Team 8 along with Haku were gathered at the completed bridge, readying to return home. Inari was crying, and Naruto seemed to only just be holding back his own tears. His efforts proved in vain when Tazuna announced the name of the bridge, however. Thank you from the bottoms of our hearts, we would like you to take this letter guaranteeing cheaper trade rates to the Hokage, and welcome you all back anytime you wish. It is all thanks to you that the Great Naruto Bridge is complete. Naruto's tears finally managed to break free when the name was announced, the gratitude and appreciation from these people more than he was ready for. Everyone smiled at Naruto as he bowed his head in respect to the people of Wave, where he was first labeled a hero. After a quick promise to return one day, the assembled ninja and their new friend turned and left, cheers following them for the first few minutes of their journey. The return trip was not at the breakneck pace they had used to reach Wave, but was faster than Kakashi's pace had been when his team had made the original journey with Tazuna. Naruto spent what spare time they had practicing with the new Abari under Kakashi's advisement, and refusing to teach Sasuke the jutsu he had used to defeat all the thugs. Sasuke was upset until Naruto explained that he simply had yet to gain enough chakra to use the technique, as it took twice as much to form as a regular Suiton. Suryuden no Jutsu, Water Dragon Bullet, and its cost increased the longer it was active. Hinata spent most of her time convincing Haku to open up to her, and telling her about everything she was legally able in Konoha. Shino looked around at the bugs mildly, but didn't see anything he was unfamiliar with. Sasuke got Kakashi to give him a couple jutsu scrolls for right-hand techniques as his team had their affinities tested by Kakashi back in Wave. Sakura practiced repeating her hand seals for Jinjutsu as fast as she could, speeding up whenever she felt comfortable. Kiba just worked on the exercise Kakashi gave him, channeling Doton chakra into a rock to make it bigger. When the gates of Konoha appeared, the team was definitely ready to go home. They knew that they would have a lot of work and explaining to do when they met the Hokage, but for now, they just let the sight of their home, hopeful home, in Haku's case, wash over them. Naruto smiled, excited to start training with his sensei's friend, and eager for whatever would come next. So, Kakashi, you decided to wait to signal back up until after you fought Zabuza, rather than when you were far closer and had just beat the demon brothers. If demoting you back to genin and making it illegal for you to own Ika were options for punishment, I would use them. After, I let you have a friendly spar with Enma and I. The Sandaime kept up the same kind look he usually had. But his promises of cruel and unusual punishment were all the more disturbing because of it. Kakashi was quaking in fear at the thought of no smut to read, but the idea of sparring with the Sandaime and Enma was ludicrous. Kakashi was good, but without the Sharingan he was an underpowered version of his father, and even the White Fan would never have been able to beat Sarutobi Hiruzen in a straight match. Hell, he doubted that his father and the three Sannin all together would have been able to beat the man in his prime. Sarutobi was just that good. Now, I also have been told by Kurenai that you neglected to teach anyone but the Uchiha on your team any practical skills. Tell me, is training one arrogant child to be minimally useful for solo missions and leaving your two other students to die a good example of the teamwork you so defend? Kakashi winced from the low blow. He had been planning to teach at least Sakura something, but she had never even once asked him. The whole reason he did a C rank was to show his team the dangerous life Shinobi led, but the danger of this particular mission was too high. Be grateful that the acquisition of the new Ibari and a prospective new Kekkei Genkai in the village will make the elders happy enough to leave me alone for a few weeks. Otherwise my bad mood would be taken out on you. You aren't getting paid for your next 6 months of missions as my lenient punishment. Kakashi held back a sigh. A new Ika was due out in 2 months, and the exorbitant cost of buying signed first editions meant he would either buy it and skip a few meals, or have to settle for a regular copy. His stomach would hate him for this. I understand and accept your mercy, Hokage-sama. Now, if there is nothing further. The Sandaime shook his head, signifying that Kakashi would stay while he talked to the combined teams, Kurenai having sent a basic report ahead. Bring the rest in. A shadow appeared at the Hokage's door and let the remainder of Team 7, as well as Team 8 and Haku inside. The assembled group inclined their heads in respect to the old warrior, before he began speaking once more. You all have accomplished much in this mission, securing a favorable trade agreement with Wave and acquiring the new Ibari marks far more than an average pay for an A-ranked mission. Naruto, you are free to keep the blade as your own, in lieu of bounty on Kushimaru. Naruto nodded his head gratefully, not willing to speak until the Hokage was finished. Now then, Yuki Haku, I believe? The slender girl gave a quiet affirmative before the Hokage continued. The advance report stated that Zabuza had raised and trained you for several years until now, and that with his death you have come to Konoha to seek new purpose in life. All I need to know is, do you bear any grievance toward Jounin Hitaki Kakashi for his role in your mentor's demise? Haku went to respond and hesitated. Did she have anything against Kakashi? She knew it was just a conflict of interest that led to what happened. And that Kakashi was the one to bury Zabuza and leave the Kubikuri Bocho with him even though he had the right to take as the victor of their fight. But she had been very depressed with her master's death before Hinata had worked to try and bring her some measure of contentment. She took a few deep breaths before replying. No, Hokage-sama. Hitaki-san is not the one responsible for Zabuza-sama's death. That traitorous pig that Zabuza-sama ended like the cretin he was is the only one I can blame. Hiruzen nodded. Having suspected as much since the girl was in better shape energy and injury-wise than anyone on the team save Naruto, who had been unconscious when she first woke up. She would have been able to kill the tired Kakashi before dying, if she had really blamed him for her master's end. Very well. You will be tested in both knowledge and skill by one of my Tokubetsu Jounin to decide your place among my ranks. There will be a month-long trial period, and you will not be eligible for missions in the Land of Water due to the danger for yourself and any teammates if you were. Testing will commence in 2 days at Training Ground 15. Someone will show you where that is. Hinata's hand practically blurred into the air as she responded. I'll do it. If that is all right with you, Hokage-sama. A bright embarrassed flush was on Hinata's face for the first time since Naruto and Kurenai had helped her build her confidence. Haku lightly giggled at the look on the slightly younger girl's face, but stopped quickly remembering that the Hokage was in the room. The old man gave his trademarked, friendly grandfather smile and nodded, glad that a prospective new ninja was already creating bonds. Very well, unless there is something not touched upon in the report, you are all free to leave. Everyone present bowed once more, before leaving. Hinata guiding Haku to the temporary living area to await her pending test. Naruto went to meet his father, ready to tell him about his successful defeat of the old swordsman and his use of the Hashiman. Everyone else returned to their own homes, most of them planning to tell their families or friends about the mission, Sasuke just to continue his right-hand training. As Naruto neared his home, he heard the louder than usual shouts of youth that meant that Lee was training his youthfulness under Guy's directions. When Naruto finally saw the two of them though, he froze in absolute horror. Lee had transformed from the long-haired karate gi-wearing boy he had met a year ago into a clone of Naruto's adoptive father, and no matter how much Naruto cared for his father, that wasn't an aesthetically pleasing event. Lee had always had parasitic caterpillar eyebrows like guys, but they seemed to grow in response to spending so much time near their superior. Naruto was certain now that the eyebrow caterpillar really did rob one of fashion's sense if left unchecked, as Lee had adopted his father's terrible green spandex and orange legwarmers. There was an addition of bandages around his forearms and hands, signifying his use of the omote wrench. Unfortunately, Naruto's shock at witnessing the youthification of Lee being complete was enough to let the two matching taijutsu specialists notice him. They ran toward Naruto and gave him a massive hug of youth, complete with a beautiful ocean sunset and palm trees. Even their caterpillars twitched in glee upon seeing the youthful without being too extreme about it Naruto. Naruto was further stunned when he realized that the strange organisms even opened their eyes and winked at him. "My son. It is a most youthful day to see you returned from battle." Guy's enthusiastic shouts were soon followed by Lee's, who had come to look at Naruto and Gaia's family in the last year. "Naruto-kun. I heard you took a C rank and then, when you got back, you left again. Tell us of your youthful adventures." Naruto just gazed at the strange genjutsu surrounding him, knowing that he couldn't dispel it. If he and his father shared a youthful embrace without Lee, the scenery was instead a waterfall with leaves blowing in an imaginary wind around them. Dai and Lee set Naruto down and waited for him to recover from his youth-induced stupor. When he regained complete awareness, he related the story of his defeat of a former seven swordsman and his becoming hailed as the hero of Wave. He also confessed to having needed both the help of Kurenai and the Hashiman to beat Kushimaru, and his use of the Kyuubi to defeat the thugs that remained. He even looked down in shame as he explained that he had used a kinjutsu from the Forbidden Scroll to kill all of the thugs. Dai sighed at the end of the story, one of his brief flashes of intelligence burning clearly into view. "I knew that you would most likely need to kill someone one day, but I had hoped you would be older and more experienced first. Just remember, son, you did a noble thing and saved a small country from tyranny, with the help of your friends. Those thugs killed and stole, and possibly worse before you finished them, and they were never going to change." Naruto nodded. He had already accepted his actions, but his father's statements eased a weight off of his shoulders. Lee looked a bit pale, his team never having killed in spite of their year of experience. The only one on his team that he thought would kill without much trouble was Niji, who was fatalistic and quite possibly homicidal. "A great, eternal rival though. I think that your idea to keep the Nuabari was excellent. It will increase your versatility, and thanks to your Kage Bunshin and your dedicated training, none of your other abilities will suffer." Naruto smiled. Guy had always been supportive of his idea to master many arts instead of specializing as he had. While a specialist was incredible in their field, it was a very limiting decision to pursue one discipline to the exclusion of all else. It worked best for fuinjutsu and medical ninjutsu, as specialists in these arts often were not sent into combat. Taijutsu specialists were disadvantaged by many other specialists, but they had advantages of their own. Ninjutsu and Genjutsu specialists outranged them significantly, as did those who focused on throwing weapons and Kusarigama-jutsu. Kinjutsu users and Bojutsu users didn't have quite as much of an advantage, but they still had the edge in reach. Taijutsu specialists didn't need the chakra levels or control that those who relied on the other main disciplines did, and they weren't dependent on some tool like a weapon specialist. Specializing in weapons and running out due to unforeseen difficulty or running out of chakra weren't among the top concerns of the Taijutsu master. The only concerns they had were building strength for striking power and speed for defense. Naruto had chosen the most difficult possible path, becoming a master of every shinobi art. Only medical techniques were beyond his reach, as the Kyuubi's toxic chakra would damage anyone but him more than it would heal them. And he would need to master its powers to keep them from bleeding into his own techniques. Of course, no one could claim to have mastered every facet, not even the Sandaime Hokage, who reputedly knew every single technique attributed to Konoha shinobi. There was even an old story which claimed that, while incapable of utilizing the correct energies for the technique, he knew the mechanics for the Nidaime's original ninjutsu version of the Hiraishin. Changing one's chakra nature to set anchors with pure power and instantaneously transporting to them was essentially impossible. Or would have been if the Nidaime hadn't been able to naturally activate time/space manipulation. In short, the Yondaime's Hiraishin was better because it was less chakra intensive and didn't require a unique change in chakra nature. The seal he used had taken care of the nature change for him, while the location of the kunai with the seals were his anchors, but rather than being forced into existence with high-density power, they were linked via the finesse of the calligraphy used to create them. The seal formula he put down through touch was a modified version of the Nidame's original, the formula changed from Senju Tobarama's first creation. That was what the Sandame had told Naruto, anyway. He remembered then that he was with Lee and his father, and awkwardly scratched his head as he looked back at them. You look tired, son. The only ways to cure exhaustion are youthful training binges and sleep. Join Lee and I in practice, and I will teach you how to activate the Kumon. The Chunin exams are coming next month after all. Naruto's attention returned fully to his father, he was ready for more training. Yugao, I wanted to ask you for a favor. Kurenai was in her living room, speaking with a woman with long purple hair. Her upper arm bore an ANBU tattoo and her body was possibly a match to Kurenai's. She wore the standard uniform of the Black Ops division she worked for, with a longer-than-average sword for a shinobi her height at her side. It would get in the way on her back while she was sitting. The ANBU captain looked interestedly at her friend, one of the few serious kunoichi around her age. Well, you aren't one to ask for favors, Kurenai. Not like Anko, she barely goes a week without asking me to request she be the interrogator for a captive. She was serious. Kurenai hadn't asked her for any favors in the number of years the two had known one another. Whatever she wanted must have been important. My student, Naruto, killed Kurira Kushimaru and has claimed the Nuabari. I can't teach him kenjutsu though. And was hoping you might be able to spare a few lessons for him. Yugao had not been expecting to hear that a 12-year-old had killed a member of the Seven Swordsmen. Nor that Konoha's Jinchuriki was the wielder of one of their legendary blades. She recovered from her shock with an amused, almost coy glance. Isn't Naruto the name of that jailbait boyfriend of yours? The surprised blush on Kurenai's face had the young captain laughing so hard little tears appeared in the corners of her eyes. He is my student, Yugao. I am not engaged in that type of relationship. Who would even tell you something like that? The slight stutter marring Kurenai's first sentence just redoubled Yugao's laughter. Even though tomorrow she would be completely stoic and back on duty, she got to just be a woman speaking with an old friend today. Kurenai managed to fight her blush back off her face, still stunned that Yugao would think her capable of having an affair with a 12-year-old. If anyone shouldn't speak about that type of thing, it's her. I never dated any of my senseis before. Of course Kurenai had never dated anyone before, she had been far too focused on her career. Genjutsu mastery being a slow road to promotion in most circumstances, she had only made Jounin a few months before she had gained her team. Yugao finally managed to answer Kurenai's query when she regained her breath. Anko did, of course. You should know that she is the only person we both talked to. Kurenai faintly remembered accidentally referring to Naruto as cute when drinking with Anko once, which had led to her moving from being a light social drinker to a teetotaler. The next day she had been woken up by Anko in a henge, looking like a shirtless Naruto. Easily the most awkward morning of her life. Yugao had managed to consider the idea while laughing, and since Hayate was busy for a while, she supposed she didn't have anything better to do during her day off. Some ANBU used to receive 2 days off a week, before the Uchiha military police had been destroyed. It was only due to her shining record and meteoric rise through the ranks that she had one every week, rather than the standard every other week. Alright, I guess I can help your boy toy out a little, but he will need to fight differently with that sword than I do with mine. It favors thrusts and can be used at range because of its wire. Kurenai left her indignant thoughts behind when Yugao agreed. She only hoped Naruto would be able to learn to effectively wield the sword quickly. She planned to enter her team in the Chunin exams. First, she would have to catch up with her other students' training. They had never stayed behind to ask her questions or receive more training like Naruto had. A woman with pupilless honey eyes and purple spiked hair walked up the steps to the Hokage's office. Her short skirt and fishnet top turned heads, though when people saw who they were looking at most quickly turned away. Mitarashi Anko was playing with some kunai in the pocket of her large trench coat, wondering what she was being called up for today. Last time had been because a wealthy and influential merchant had accused her of mentally scarring his daughter, who had espoused wanting to leave the family business and be a kunoichi after seeing the beautiful TNI member. The Sandame had called her in, told her what happened, and then waited for her to finish laughing. The merchant had been practically frothing at the mouth in anger, but the Anko merely said TP have told the girl her job when she'd been asked. It wasn't every day someone wanted to speak civilly with her. The Sandame just told the man that his daughter could be a kunoichi if she wanted to, and proceeded to dismiss him from the room and ignore him as he shouted on his way out. Too bad she couldn't remember the girl's name. She had apparently become a kunoichi and had been the best in her year. Maybe she should ask Kurenai when she got back from her trip to Wave. The presence of the Hokage's office door brought Anko from her thoughts, the soft command to enter carrying through. The Sandaime usually wasn't waiting so eagerly for visitors that he actually used his skills to detect incoming shinobi. He had too much paperwork for that. When Anko opened the door, the old man wasn't even frowning, which might have been the first time he wasn't when she was called in. Maybe Danzo had stopped resisting her attempts to gain promotion or something. Sit down, Anko-chan. Hiruzen's ability to make people like him had only increased as he aged, his wise eyes and kind smile typically making anyone he talked to think of family. Anko, however, was immune. What did you need, Hokage-sama? You are in too good a mood for me to be the subject of a lawsuit again. His smile only widened. He loved bantering with some of his ninja. He had enjoyed bantering with Kakashi at first, but his excuses for being late just got worse as he aged. Ah, yes, Tenten-chan's father was very unhappy she decided to be a kunoichi. Her obsession with Tsunade-chan and you strikes me as more odd than an adventurous spirit though. Anko sighed. She was on her way to get some dango when an ANBU had told her to come to the office. I didn't call you here to wax nostalgic about old bouts with paperwork though. A new kunoichi prospect with the Hayaton Kekkei Genkai needs to be tested for rank in 2 days. The venue is Training Ground 15. You will test her. Anko didn't even think that the Hayaton was even still around. Where was she found? Kurenai's team brought her back from Wave. She had been serving Momochi Zabuza. Anko assumed she had been either poisoned or surprised to be taken down. Or that Kurenai had done it since Kakashi outclassed her Ravenet friend. Obviously he would take Zabuza, but she would get the story from Kurenai when she visited her later, curiosity temporarily overpowering hunger for dango. Is testing her my only goal? Yes, although if she is where I believe her to be I was hoping you would teach her. You are the best kunoichi in the village to teach ninjutsu, and most Kekkei Genkai clans have high chakra pools. Anko frowned at the idea of teaching. Her own sensei had permanently made her wary of the idea, mostly because she didn't want to teach anyone that pale-faced pedo bastard's techniques. Even if they were really good. I will consider it after I meet her and test her. If you think I'm best to teach her, I'll at least give it a thought. A smile was the response she got as she left to visit her best friend. So Haku, what do you think of Konoha? The Ice Maiden turned to look at her companion. Hinata had barely left her side since she had woke up back in Wave. She had also done everything she could both to ease Haku's pain from losing Zabuza and to convince her to join Konoha. Without the slightly younger girl's help, she probably would have just finished herself. Haku noticed that Hinata seemed almost desperate for approval, most likely hoping that Haku was satisfied that she had followed Hinata's advice in coming to Konoha. Many people turned to glance at the two, preteens from both genders jealous of not being with either of them. Haku had chosen to wear her favorite pink kimono and her thin choker when they entered the village. Her long dark hair, soft brown eyes, and slim, athletic body led many to blush when they saw her, both male and female. While Haku's features were clearly feminine, as was her voice, it seemed that even people here in Konoha would be unable to tell her gender. Haku was nervous though, she was unused to all the eyes on her and she was being seen with a Hyuga. Everyone knew that since the fall of the Senju and Uchiha, the Hyuga were practically royalty in Konoha. It seems just as nice as you promised, though I don't know how long it will take for me to get used to so many eyes on me. Hinata smiled brightly. She had spent much time with Haku in the past week, and was glad she liked her new home. Once the battle at the bridge had ended, Hinata found herself remembering the odd feelings that stirred when she watched Haku. She hoped to at least be friends with the last Yuki, even if her new friend wasn't attracted to her. Hinata had decided that the best way to understand what she thought about Haku would be to ask Kurenai and remain in Haku's presence as much as possible. Her own sensei had stirred something similar, though that had just been a form of admiration. Kurenai was beautiful, and Hinata wanted to be. Naruto had caused that same feeling. He was strong and never gave up or went back on his word, and she took strength from his example. Haku, on the other hand, caused her cheeks to heat and her stomach to feel strange. Maybe it was just because she had used her Byakugan to see what her gender was under her clothes, which had been her dark, loose-fitting battle clothes. Being the first non-relative she had seen naked might be the cause of her embarrassment. So she stayed, and tried to see if it lessened over time. It hadn't, and when she had asked Kurenai, she had only responded by saying, I've never had any experience with what you're asking. But it sounds the same as how a friend describes her feeling for her fiancé. That had been the last nail in the coffin of Hinata's previous assumptions towards her sexuality. She just hoped that she would prove strong enough that her father wouldn't care. Artificial insemination existed, many of the donors were powerful ninja hoping to spread their legacy that had no clans. Jiraiya of the Sannin had once donated twice a week. I'm glad, Haku. Come on, I'll show you where to get the best cinnamon buns in the whole world. Haku giggled as Hinata's excited side came forth as she spoke of her obsession. You know, I would like if you called me Haku-chan, we are friends now, right? I've never really had a friend before, so I don't know exactly. Hinata turned and stared at Haku for a few moments, before she responded. We are definitely friends, Haku-chan. A remnant of Hinata's shyness showed through as she blushed a little using the affectionate honorific. Both of them smiled, before Haku allowed herself to be pulled forward. Every group having similar thoughts, wondering just what the future would bring. This was all for now. Thank you for watching, I hope you liked it and that you will be back for more. Please like, share and subscribe. See ya.